I'm supposedly wired for sound. You know, Bill Dunlap, one of my dear friends over here, an artist, when I did my last book, it was on a man named I.F. Stone, and he used to joke and say, "Is there any sex in this? Is there any sex in this?" And I said, "You gotta have some sex in this." And I said, "It won't sell if you don't." So in his honor, I did sex and scandal.
Oh, can I get a witness?
You know, I really hate public speaking. You know, it used to make me so incredibly nervous. I still am, but I got a lesson once when I was speaking to a group, rather large group, and there was this woman in the front, and she just, nothing. I rather was smiling, other people looking attentive, and she just looked like this. So I found myself playing to her. All of you who remember Jack, my wonderful Jack Gordon, used to say he'd get 95% of the vote. He'd always wonder who the hell were the other 5%, you know. And that was the way I was playing to this woman, because everybody else was being kind of nice and listening and everything. And so finally I got so angry at the end when the Q&A, I said, well, you know, maybe this woman in front would like to say something. And the woman next to her said, oh, she's from Germany. She hasn't understood a word you said. So if I don't get any response, I know why. You're all from another country. And this actually does tie in, believe it or not, with the Scarlet sisters, because they became the most incredible female lecturers of their time, speaking to 6,000 and more on all these subjects that we will get to. But at the beginning, they both almost fainted when they started to speak, and I kept thinking, well, you know, maybe it's one of, you know, it was just an interesting story to see that they, after developing this amazing skill and being able to speak without any mic, you know, without anything, behind gas lights, and just one little person on a huge stage. And when Tennie, the youngest, was 64, she had a sold-out crowd of 7,000 twice at Royal Albert Hall. So they were really an amazing duo. And people ask me, you know, how I got interested in them. And the main beginning of it was in 2008, when everybody was saying that there's a possible historic ticket of a white woman and an African-American male, i.e. Clinton and Obama. And so I read this little squib that said it had been done before, 133 years before. In 1872, when Victoria Woodhull ran on this remote third-party ticket with Frederick Douglass, the former slave and orator. So I said, well, I got to find out more about that. And then I found out about her sassy younger sister, Tennie, who she was just totally, she was like an untamed colt. You know, anything she said or did was just out there very fast. Anyway, so when she ran for president, Tennie ran for Congress, and their argument was that nothing in the Constitution said anything against a woman running for office. This was 50 years before the vote. And they fought for equality in the boardroom, the bedroom, and even on the battlefield. Tennie Clafiln became the first woman, and probably the only woman, to be the colonel of a regiment of the African American New York Regiment. And so before I get into how their similarities are today, I do want to say who they were, because this was an era when women had no power. They couldn't leave a marriage if they wanted to. If they got a divorce, they couldn't get the children. They were stratified in the way of the upper class, and then middle class and lower class. And they came from the trashiest background possible. Their father was a con artist, snake oil man, who put them into fake fortune telling at a very young age. At the age of 11, Tennie was telling fake fortunes for 13 hours at a stretch. And they both just climbed out of this horrible background and an abusive family situation, and decided that they wanted to have power and they wanted to have freedom. And they just pursued it with a kind of pursuit that very few people would have, and certainly women. And they were very beautiful, and they were great self-promoters, and the first thing they had to do was to get known before they could run for president or Congress. So the very first of their many firsts was that they became the first women to own a brokerage firm on Wall Street. And they were bankrolled. That didn't happen again for another 100 years, I might add. And they were bankrolled by Cornelius Vanderbilt, the richest man in America, who was known to be the lover of Tennie. At least all the books say that, and I don't want to abuse anybody of that. I think that's a good idea. Anyway, but they got to him because he believed in spiritualism, and they were clairvoyants, and they were, decided that they could. I think there was a genuine force in what they could do, but also a lot of fake involved. And they kept convincing him that they would be sure to get his long dead mother talking to him. I don't know if that ever happened, but they managed to get this stockbrokerage firm, and it was so amazing that more than 2,000 stockbrokers came out just to see them on opening day. They came in and they dressed alike. They were 7 years apart in age, but they had it all planned. They even had 2 gold pens, pure gold pens behind each ear. They cut their hair short. They were just audacious in everything they did. And so after that, they kept on going, and Victoria became the first woman ever to address Congress, and it was over the vote. And she was trying to prove that because the Constitution said citizen, and because it said people, and because nowhere, except in the 14th Amendment, does it ever say male vote. And that was sort of a throwaway in the Second Amendment of the 14th Amendment, the second article, which was to was to make sure that no African American women could vote, and that was really the reason for it. So up till then, there hadn't been anything. So they argued, and she went to speak before Congress, almost fainting, as I said, and gave this really enormously intelligent concept of why women should not be able to get the vote. And of course, all the male congressmen just shot it down. And when she was talking to one of them, she said, I'm a citizen. And he said, Madam, you are not a citizen. And she said, well, what am I? And he said, you are a woman. And so for the next 50 years, whatever kind of citizens women were, they couldn't get the vote. And then they started a radical newspaper and became these fiery lectures, shocking audiences of up to 6,000 with their views on divorce, prostitution, religion, race, financial and political corruption, sex in and out of marriage. And they decided that upper crust women who married for money were practicing legalized prostitution. And I mean, their guts and their absolute chutzpah, to do everything. In fact, they knew how to reshape a story. The New York Times wrote a blistering piece about them and said it seems unbelievable 2 women of this sort could be in one family. So they just excised that part and said, and the New York Times praises us as it seems unbelievable that these I mean, we could all take lessons from these women. And they loved communists and capitalists alike. They joined they were the first and only women to join the Karl Marx's International Working Men's Association. And it was so popular that it was called the Yankee International. And the sisters said, okay, we're going to make this. It was their version of the Rainbow Coalition. They let women in, they let blacks in, they let anybody else in, and all the poor people. And Karl Marx, who thought they were great at first, just threw a fit and expelled them. And the sisters just said, oh, he's nothing but a fallen despot. And the important thing is that historians say no matter what happened, that they actually promoted racial equality the most since abolition by their movements. One was by running with Frederick Douglass. The other one was being the colonel of the army and everything. And as I said, above all, they railed against Victorian hypocrisy regarding sex. And as they were free lovers, which could mean anything from just wanting to reform these horrible divorce laws, to having the choice, of, believe it or not, of somebody that